Hi, talking in this particular set of slides about case study approaches. So giving an overview of case study analysis, not that it's hard and fast, but just some ideas for you. The purpose of case studies in this unit is to highlight the links between HRD theory and practice in an organisational context. There are some case studies posted on the site. There's 3, and it's under a heading called Case Study Resources, and it's in the Module 3 area. And there's also a case study provided for Assessment Item 3, so that you've got time to look at that. So, case study approaches. There's a couple of frameworks here: SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, threats and opportunities, that can be a useful starting point, broadly speaking, for a whole organisation or department. So it's taking you really out of the minutiae of the case and looking at, broadly speaking, what are the strengths, weaknesses, threats and opportunities, both outside and inside the organisation. And that can be a really useful starting point, and that's actually included in the question in the assessment item 3. So, and the idea is there that you can provide that information on the tables that are given there. There's some links there, and so you can just simply write down the strengths, weaknesses, threats and opportunities. Also, a PEST analysis, which is about the political, economic, social and technological. Again, pretty big approaches to this, but it's again emphasising this idea that any case must be situated within a broader context. So these are macro approaches that help you to guide the analysis, and we suggest that you do that first up. Now, this is a framework coming now that you can use to analyse a case. It's important to look at what is mentioned and what isn't mentioned. So, for example, one of the first questions could be the context. So what's the industry type? Is it manufacturing, which in your political analysis or your economic analysis you might have concluded that that's an area that's facing real difficulties at the moment in Australia. Can you see what the mission statement is, what the goals are, what the characteristics are? Now, if there's no mention in the case of the values or the mission, you need to think about that. Is it that then they haven't even been properly identified? That could be a problem. So then the next question is what are the problems? Are they related to HRD? One of the themes that we spoke about earlier is that it mightn't be a HRD problem at all. It could just be that something to do with the costs of labour or the shortages of labour or whatever. So we need to sort of understand whether it is a HRD related problem, and also what are the strengths and weaknesses of current approaches. So if you can discern what HRD is being offered or how it's being operationalised, what are the strengths and weaknesses there? Why do they exist? So take an analytical perspective on why. It's usually a whole combination of reasons. Sometimes the actual problems aren't really surfaced in the case. If it's a case that's made public, well, the organisation doesn't want those problems highlighted sometimes. So that's when you really need to be looking beyond what's actually written on the paper. So what are some problems? You might like to think about it through this idea of the future of work. What could be happening there? What might they be overlooking? Do you think it is a learning organisation that is open to change and contests assumptions, that sort of thing? And how? So this is the 4th question here. How could you approach the problem and plan for the future? Obviously, a really important part of a case analysis is what you would actually do. So what recommendations would you specifically make for this case? So you need to be clear about what the problems are, the breadth and depth of those problems, and how then would you approach it, plan for the future? Often at the end of cases, you can ask yourself, right, if I was a new HRD professional just put in this situation, what would I do first? What would I approach first? What recommendations can I make? And that's where you need the theory to really guide you. So you can look at organisational learning theory, for example, that we've just discussed in this week, and consider the most relevant models, the theories, the literature, and their usefulness in understanding and analysing the particular case. So some of the theories, etc., that you might use here, first of all, looking at strategy. That's been put forward earlier in this unit is very important. So how do we sort of think about strategy? What's mentioned in terms of strategy? And if we take even Rosabeth Moss-Kanter's approach of zooming in and zooming out, we can say, okay, we've zoomed out, this is how the strategy looks. It's positive because of this or negative because of that. But if we zoom in, there are particular problems in a certain group or a certain aspect of the environment that's changing or whatever. So that zoom in, zoom out could be a good framework for you. So also keep in mind the overall HRD process. This must be coming through needs assessment, design, implementation or delivery and evaluation. Are those aspects coming through to you in that case? What are the adult learning principles? Can you see that there's lifelong learning? Can you see that there's professional development taking place? Is knowledge management being cared for well? Do people have the opportunity to develop their careers? What does the case tell you about diversity management, if anything? Leadership, communication, ethics, the future of HRD. So these are topics that we're covering in this module. How would you conceptualise your professional role? What would you do? Would you be working through managers, for example? And make sure that you link the case and that there are links between the case and your analysis and that your recommendations are explicit. So not wanting something that's very general about good HRD, but in this particular case, what exactly would you recommend? Okay, thank you very much.